Hello, good morning. My name is Isabel Moore. I'm going to this is the studies of the Divine Principle. I already did the conference, the introduction of Divine Principles. Isabel Lira Chanel. I already gave the introduction of the Divine Principle, and then I did the principle of creation, and now I'm going to do the fourth man. Okay, Divine Principle. For people doesn't know are new for studies is the whole Bible clear. The accordance to Jesus, Jesus said, in the last days, in the days of the Son, in the days of the Son of Man, when he will come back, he will clearly explain what I'm telling you today. So Jesus was clear. So divine principle, this is outline of conference of the divine principle. Level 4. Divine principle is a whole Bible, completely clear, since the Genesis until the last book of Revelation, and to in our lives deal, because life was created by God. Everything we does, we supposed to follow God. That's the original plan of God. So I'm going to do today the conference of about the fourth man. The fourth man was when Adam and Eve fell to follow God principles, God direction, and follow the old angel, what become Lucifer. I'm sorry, what's become Satan after betray God, hurting God's kids, Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, God told Adam and Eve to not to touch all the fruits of the garden, but not touching the fruit of the good and the bad. The minute you touch, you will die. No, the good and o fruto, excuse me, I speak português original. O fruto da árvore da vida, the fruit of of life. And Adam and Eve not supposed to touch, but then Eve was induced by the old angel before used to be Lucifer in a heaven with God. He betrayed God, attacking Eve, and Eve induced Eve to do what God told her to not do. In the minute she will do in Adam, they will die, and they did. Died means spiritually disconnect from the God. Okay, so let's go. Let's begin the Divine Principles wrote by Reverend Samiamon. Reverend Samiamon is the second advent of Jesus. I know if you knew about the Divine Principle, it's a surprise for you, but unfortunately, the priests around the world, as Israel declined to accept Jesus, all the priests around the world declined to accept Reverend Mo's second advent of Jesus. And now this problem we have today is the beginning of the tribulation. Jesus already said 2,000 years ago. The COVID is the beginning. And it continues. Unfortunately, you have to pray for God to interfere. Okay, so let's go. Chapter 2 of the Divine Principle, the fourth man. Every persona has one original mind, which has the nature of God and pursues goodness and repels evil. We all know that every one of us, inside us, we have the original mind, which means came from God. Where the original mind, the good mind, always kick out the evil, and the mind we inherit from Adam and Eve, what is the original sins, adhere the things evil belongs to Satan. Okay, so but fallen people are inconsciously, fallen people are unconsciously, I'm sorry, I am not great in English, I just try my best. Unconsciously driven by one evil force to commit evil acts contrary to the desires of the original mind. In Christianity, the one who controls this evil force is known as a Satan. We know everything bad was created by Satan, everything good was created by God. This chapter, the fall, makes clear the identity of Satan and the origin of the evilness, the evil, the bad. Okay? Oh, it's a little cool here, so let me close here. So, excuse me. Okay, let's go. Continue. The root of the sin. The tree of the life and the tree of the knowledge of the goodness and the evil. Based on the book of Genesis in the Bible, Christians have traditionally held the somewhat vague beliefs that the origin, sin and root of the sin and evil was the first human ancestors eating a piece of fruit. That's how the men understand. The fruit in the Bible is literal, symbolic. The fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for brevity of referent to it after as the, I'm sorry, let me just read. However, is the fruit of good and evil is literal fruit. It's not Adam and Eve ate the fruit. God used the word fruit because fruit came from the tree. Is the fruit of the tree, or is it symbolic? I'm going to read again. Based on the book of Genesis in the Bible, Christians have traditionally held the somewhat vague belief that the original sins and root of the sin and evil was the first human ancestors eat piece of fruit. That's how I used to believe like that too. Fruit. However, is the fruit of good and evil is a literal fruit, or is it a symbol as are many other terms in the Bible? According to the principle, each is symbol. It's a symbol. Could not God make a fruit to kill the man? Because we eat fruits, not kill us. So just press the action, somebody, okay? How could a God of love, the parent of mankind, make such one attractive fruit and leave it in a place where it could be eaten by his children and cause them to fall? This is in Genesis 3:6. God, Jesus said in Matthew 15:11, not what goes into the mouth define a man. How then could something edible cause men to fall? The accord with Jesus and the principle of God. It is also inconceivable that that God of love create the fruit of good and evil to test the man. God will not do that. Create something to test your own children. So mercilessly as to ultimately cause his death. Merely to see whether or not men would obey his word. The fact that they ate the fruit, excuse me, they ate the fruit. Yeah. The fact why they ate the fruit despite having been told that they would die. Before Adam and Eve eat the fruit, which symbolized what they did, and the Bible uses fruit as a symbol that show what Adam and Eve did. God had told them to not eat that fruit. Don't do that action. Indicates that the fruit must represent something so extremely stimulating that their desire for it was even greater than their desire for life. Simboliza que o que, excuse me, this means that the fruit, what that God told them to not eat, the action was so stronger. Before we can determine what the fruit of the good and the evil symbolize, we must know what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was. Yet the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is mentioned only a few times in the Bible. Excuse me. In order to determine what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil symbolizes, we will first study the tree of life, which, according to the Bible, stood with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of the Eden. Genesis 2:9 and 2:17, 3, Genesis 2:9 and Genesis 2:17 and Genesis 3:3, and is mentioned in numerous places throughout the Bible. Yeah, the about the knowledge of good and evil was in the Old Testament is mentioned in a lot of places in the Bible, in the Old Testament also. Now, to explain the New Testament, Jesus spoke about, everything was caused the man fall. So the tree of life. The tree of life. Proverbs 13:12 says, Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. This isn't, when we do something to make us happy, we get life and happiness. When we do something bad, we feel in hell. This is in Proverbs 13:12. As Revelations 22:14 says, Blessed are those who wash their robes for sins and evil, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and that they may enter the seat by the gates. It's Revelation chapter 22:14 verse. Those passages show that attaining the tree of life will lead to happiness for fallen men. Then what is this, the tree of life? Such as that it was the hope of the Israelites of the Old Testament age and the hope of the Christians of the New Testament. Was the tree of life? What was the hope of the Israelis before the time of the Old Testament? It still is, and now the Christians. If fallen people are asked what the essence of happiness and hope is, each person will give different answers. One person might answer that is the power, and another that say that is the wealth of knowledge. Then what has been the common hope of the people of faith throughout the history of humankind? One thing is clear: if the enormous hope of fallen man is the tree of life, then the hope of Adam before the fall must have been the tree of life also. You know, if we are hope, the hope God gave to us gave to Adam and Eve too. That's common. The reason is that each person retains his original nature deep within himself, and thus longs for that which was originally desired before the fall, but was lost. No, this desire was lost from the two first ancestors because they disobeyed God. If we read in Genesis 3:22-24, shows that Adam desired to reach the tree of life, but because of his sin was not allowed to. Thus, the tree of life has remained as only a hope of fallen man. Yeah, that's for sure. Then what was the tree of life? The hope of the growing, not yet perfected Adam. Could material possessions have been the basic hope of Adam in the Garden of Eden, or power, or any external concern? Let's see what this means. Since he was to be Lord of the cosmos, Adam and Eve supposed to be the parents of the humankind, because they were the two human beings first God made it, create to make the world, to be parents of the humankind. Let's see. Since was to be, let's begin. Could material possessions have been the basic hope of Adam in the Garden of Eden, or power, or any external concern? Since he was to be the Lord of the cosmos and to rule all things, there was no reason for Adam to hope for more material possessions or power, because he already has other power. If Adam had any deep wish while he was still unperfected, it would only have been to achieve his own perfection. In other words, his desire would have been to become a man of perfect character, one who has fulfilled the ideal for the creation. Therefore, the tree of life symbolizes the man who has fulfilled the purpose of the creation. The tree of man is the perfect human being who realized the plan of original, the creation by God. Okay, excuse me. Then he would have become the tree of life, and he would have established the kingdom of heaven on earth, which is the garden of the tree of life. If Adam and Eve had not violated the laws of God and not ate the prohibited fruit, Adam and Eve was the Lord of the cosmos, was the parents of the humankind. Adam fell and God blocked his way to the tree of life. However, Adam fell and God blocked his way to the tree of life with a flaming sword. Genesis chapter 3, verse 24. Since Adam abandoned the purpose of the creation, he became a false tree of life and bore descendants who were false tree of life. And we have been all this time living with the false tree of life, Adam and Eve, what was original sins, and the world is bad shape. That's why God sent the prophets to restart, to prepare the world for Jesus in Israel and the world. And Jesus came as a truly Adam. We will see next conference. Okay. Since Adam abandoned the purpose of creation, he became a false tree of life and bore descendants who were false tree of life, thus establishing a garden of false trees of life rather than the garden of trees of life. Because Adam never fell with the influence of the old angel who becomes Satan, induced even using this Adam. Adam is a false tree of life, and everybody is descendant of Adam, and you have this tree of false life. Okay. Therefore, in order to establish the kingdom of heaven, earth, which is the garden of the trees of life, a true tree of life must appear in the fallen world and engraft all mankind to himself. Knowing that the true law of life represents Adam, we can then understand that the tree of life in the Old Testament, Proverbs 13, verse 12, represents Jesus. And it's knowing that the tree of life represents Adam, we can then understand that the tree of life in the Old Testament, Proverbs 13:12, represents Jesus. In 1 Corinthians 15:45, and the tree of life in the New Testament books. Then Jesus came, Adam and Eve. Adam supposed to be the first son of child of God, Adam and Eve. Because Adam and Eve ate the prohibited fruit, which was action against God principle violating, God sent Jesus as the first perfect Adam to bring us to the Father, back to the Father, God. We see in Revelation chapter 22, verse 14, represents the returning of Messiah. Furthermore, we can understand why the purpose of this dispensation for salvation is to restore the tree of life that was lost in the Garden of Eden. What you see in Genesis 2:9. And the tree of life that is mentioned in the book of Revelation. Revelation 22:14. Let me get the Bible, okay? To continue. Hold on. A Bible. Okay, I have the Bible here. Holy Bible. Okay, excuse me. I have a little bit cold. I'm here. I live in California, United States, and it's almost time to be summer, but still a little cold, and I get allergy. Sorry about that. So let's read this chapter here. We are here. Hold on. Chapter says, furthermore, we can understand why the purpose of the dispensation for salvation is to restore the tree of life that was lost in the Garden of Eden. Genesis 2:9. Let me read for you Genesis 2:9, okay? Get in the Bible. Hold on. Okay, Genesis 2:9 say that. Okay, hold on. Let me find the verse 9. Verse 9. Hold on. Where is the 9? Okay. Genesis chapter 2, verse 9. Out of the ground the Lord God made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was saw in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Yeah? So, okay, continue. Revelation, and then a life is mentioned in book Revelation 2:20. Revelation chapter 22:14. Let's see Revelation. Revelation chapter 22, verse 14. Revelation. Of Revelation. Okay, hold on. Okay, Revelation chapter 22, verse 14. About the tree of the life. 14. Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they will have the right to the tree of life and may enter the seat by the gates. Okay? There you go. That's what it's about, who accomplish the God principles. The tree of the knowledge good and evil. In the Garden of Eden, God, oh my God, I have allergies. In the Garden of Eden, God created Adam and Eve to be his spouse. If in the midst of the garden there was a tree to symbolize the man, isn't it likely that there would also be the tree symbolizing the woman? Yes, and the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil, which stood with the tree of life in Genesis 2:9, 2:17, 3:3. Let me read. I love to read the Bible and the divine principles. 2:9, 2:9. I read for you. Now let's read 2:17. What God talk about the tree of the life. 17. Okay, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you should die. God was clear to Adam and Eve. And then Genesis chapter 3 verse 3. Let's see. The first sin and its punishment. 3. I found. Okay. But God said, you should not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, nor shall you touch it, or you shall die. But the serpent said to the woman, to Eve, you will not die, for God, you will not die. The serpent betrayed God and his kids, family. Okay? In the Bible, Jesus is at times symbolically in the Bible, Jesus is at times symbolically represented as a vine. John 15:5, or olive tree. Romans 11:17. In similar fashion, Adam and Eve are represented by two trees, and towards this a clue a clue has been provided concerning the secret of man's fall. To assert that there was a tree of life and tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the midst of the Garden of Eden does not mean that there were two literal trees in the geographical center of literal garden, but rather means that the two people, Adam and Eve, I'm going to read again for you, for be more clear, okay? To assert that there was a tree of life and tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the midst of the Garden of Eden does not mean that there were two literal trees. In the geographical center of literal garden, but rather means that there were two people, Adam and Eve are the center and nucleus of the God's ideal for the creation. God made the two first, Adam and Eve. The Garden of Eden was Adam and Eve in the truth. What's right? God's entire ideal for the creation is to be fulfilled through the man. God created man to fulfill the ideal of his creation in the earth first. Because after you died, you just take what you did here. Everybody. When we see things in these terms, we can see that the tree of knowledge of good and evil represented the woman, Eve. We must then conclude that the fruit of this tree is somehow related to the Eve. This tree was Eve. The Eve was responsible for the tree. However, in order to understand clearly what the fruits represented, we must first determine the identity of the serpent. In Genesis 3, the Bible showed that it was a serpent and that tempted Eve to sin. Yes. Eve was the tree of the knowledge. Let me move something here. Excuse me. I just want to put something else here. All right. Okay. There you go. Okay. Thank you. I have my organ. Okay. In order to understand clearly what the fruit represent, we must first determine that identity of the serpent. The serpent. In Genesis 3, the Bible showed that it was a serpent that tempted Eve to sin. However, the serpent referred to there cannot be serpent in the literal sense. It must be symbol. In Genesis 3, we also see that the serpent talked with the woman. The serpent talked to the Eve, and that he understood that God had told Adam and Eve not to eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Understand? Was clear for Eve and for the serpent, and the serpent was talking to Eve. So, I mean, if you talk, you are a being. It's a living being, can be spiritual or physical. Okay. The serpent talked with the woman, and that is in Genesis 3, and that he understood that God had told Adam and Eve to not eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In order for the serpent to be able to speak to man and know what good and know what God had instructed, the serpent must have been a spirit being. Revelation 12:9 says, "And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent." Then you understand, was a spirit being. In Revelation, we see the serpent, after betray God, inducing Eve to fall, to eat the prohibited fruit, was thrown out the garden. Who is called the devil and Satan? The serpent, the ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Indicate that the ancient serpent is the devil. This ancient serpent is the very serpent which tempted Eve. Since Revelation 12:9 says that the serpent was thrown down from heaven. There was an angel in heaven, and he was good, but then when he betrayed Eve, betraying God, destroy his kids, he was thrown out from heaven to the hell. We know that the serpent was in heaven prior to being prior to being thrown down, and therefore that he must have been a spiritual being. He used to be in heaven, and God was a spiritual being. Since we know that the serpent is Satan, Revelation 12:9, we can learn who the serpent was by discovering who Satan is. In order to know who Satan is, we must discover the identity of the spirit being, which was the heaven before it sinned. It can be argued that sin, the serpent, was originally in the Garden of Eden, before being thrown down from heaven. The serpent must originally has been a being that God created with the nature of goodness, and a being that was not yet perfect, because there was no being in the Eden which was not created by God. 2. The number 1. There was no being in the Eden which was created by God. 2. God creates only good. 3. No good being called commit sin after become perfect. That's what explained, no? Who was a serpent. Some people imagine that the spirit being which is symbolized as a serpent was being which existed even before the creation existed, and was a being whose intent was evil, contrary to that of God. However, with the exception of fallen man, everything in the cosmos exists according to the perfect order. So it is not possible that there could have been from the beginning a source of evil which was contrary to God. Yeah. God make everything perfect with him. And the angel was good in stage of perfection, going to the perfection. Okay, if they had originally been two opposing forces in the universe, their contradictory purpose would have caused the universe to destroy it. to be destroyed. It can only be concluded that the spirit being was originally created for the purpose of goodness. Let me read again. However, with this exception of fallen man, everything in the cosmos exists according to one perfect order. So it is not possible that there could have been from the beginning a source of evil which was contrary to God. God doesn't create nothing evil. It's Satan who did begin to do after violate the God law with Eve. If there had originally been two opposing forces in the universe, their their contradictory purpose will have caused the universe to be destroyed. It can only be concluded that the spirit being was originally created for the purpose of goodness, but later, while in the process of growing, fell and became Satan. God make the angels like he makes he makes Adam and Eve, but he makes the angel first. And God, the angel was in the heaven, leading the heaven, the spirit in the heaven, and the angel was in the process of growing. Okay, let me try this. I want to turn off the slide. I don't know. Okay, I think I need a light. Let's see. Yeah, okay, good. So this means the angel was in the process of restoration, and before he was in the process of growing, as we growing here too on the earth, and he fell during the time of he was in the process of growing, when he induced Eve, make Eve eat the fruit prohibited. The Garden of Eden was action, and then he was thrown out the garden. He becomes Satan leading the evening. So, but later, while in the process of growing, but hold on. If there, yeah, hold on. Let me see where I lost myself. But I'll be back. Okay. It can only be concluded that the spirit being was originally created for the purpose of goodness, but later, while in the process of growing, this angel fell and became Satan after he violated God's laws with Eve. This being was able to converse. This being was able to converse with the man, to talk to man. It knew God's ill. This being who induced Eve, what we call the serpent in the Bible, was able to talk to Eve in Adam, and he knows the will of God. This means he was created before Adam and Eve. He was angel because he has no body. Angels is like God has. I mean, they exist in heaven, but they don't have a body like us. God has our body because we represent Him, supposed to represent Him. Then this Eve, it originally lived in He knows God before Adam and Eve was born. And he originally lived in a heaven. He used to live in a heaven before he be thrown out the Garden of Eden. It had the ability to tempt the man, and this being had the ability to tempt the man to do things bad about the man with the man. And this being, after falling and become Satan, was still able, transcendent of time and space, to influence a man's mind and spirit, causing man to lead a life of evil. And this being, after he was fell, become Satan, was thrown out the Garden of Eden, he still have a capacity to destroy the man, influence the man. It means was a living being, a spiritual being, actually. He was a spiritual being in heaven. The serpent, the Bible says the serpent because serpent who does something evil. Né? So let's continue. So this Satan was an angel, was created by Adam, before Adam and Eve. God made the angels in heaven. And then when Adam and Eve was created, God put him to help Adam and Eve, and instead help he destroy Adam and Eve. What being is endued with such ability? No being other than the angel is endued with such abilities. One might ask whether angels can commit sins, but biblical evidence for this is clear. In fact, when we read 2 Peter 2:4, which say, God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into the hell and committed them to pits of nether gloom. We can clearly see that angels can do sin. It was an angel. The Satan was an angel before he became Satan. Taking the note that Revelation 12, chapter 12, verses 7 to 9, saying, his angels indicate that the serpent was the fact a leader of angels. Oh, let's read that. Revelation 7 to 9. Excuse me. I have Revelations 12, 7 to 9. Let's read, okay? Oh my God, it's right here. 7 to 9. 7 to 9. Let's read. Michael defeats the dragon. Michael defeats the dragon. 7 to 9. 7 to 9. What's the chapter? 12, 7 to 9. 12, 7 to 9. Where's the 7 here? Okay. Michael defeats the dragon, and war broke into heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but they were defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. 9. The great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. There was angels. Now we know the serpent who induced Eve was an angel before, and because he betrayed God, destroying God's kids, teaching God's kids the contrary of God to destroy, he became Satan, and God threw him out of the heaven. And then he lived on the earth as a Satan, destroying whoever followed them, and will inherit this original sin from Adam and Eve. Okay, let's continue, okay? In saying his angels indicate that the serpent was in fact a leader of angels. He used to be the leader in the angelical world before Adam and Eve. We cannot understand that the serpent was one angel. The sin of the angel. The sin of the angel and the sin of the first man and woman. Then what was the sin of this angel? Jude 6:7 says, and the angels that did not keep their own possession but left their proper dwelling have been kept by him in eternal chain in the neither gloom until the judgment of the great day. That's what proved the angel was the serpent, who induced Eve and destroyed the creation of the first man and woman, and they instead follow God, they follow Satan. But that's why Jesus said, this world is controlled by evil. Jesus again proved that. Just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise acted immorality and indulged in one unnatural lust, serve as example by undergoing a punishment of eternal life. The sin of the angel in the garden was the sin of fornication. God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because angels come from the heaven. Evil angels belongs to Satan, to the angel who betrayed Adam and Eve, and was having sex, homosexualism, and God destroyed the Sodom and Gomorrah. And then this explained the action between the angel and Eve was fornication, sex, violation of the laws of the love, the sex of God, which likewise, like the angels, act immorality induced in one unnatural, serve as example by undergoing punishment of eternal life, fire. The sin of the angel in the garden was the sin of fornication, violation of the sex, the law of God. Since fornication cannot be committed alone, there must have to be a partner to have a sex. But who could it have been? The Bible tells us of only three beings that sinned in the Garden of Eden: the serpent, Adam, and Eve. Let us consider what the sin of the first man and woman could have been. In Genesis 3:7 says, we read that after being tempted by, let's read in the Genesis 3:7. 3:7 says, 3:7, chapter 3, verse 7. Go. Then the first sin, the title, the first sin, and it is punishment. Chapter 7 of the chapter 3, verse 7, Genesis. Then the eyes of the both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. This means before Eve and Adam was induced by the serpent, the angel become serpent, they were naked, they was pure, they didn't have any problem. But after the connection, or after the serpent induced Eve and Eve induced Adam, they figured out they was naked, mean they had sex. They open, the action showed them clearly. Then Genesis 3:7, we read that after being tempted by serpent and committing sin, the first ancestor become ashamed of their nakedness and covered the lower part of the body, the part sexual. However, before they fall, Adam and Eve were naked but unashamed. There was no shame to be naked. But after the serpent induced Eve and Eve induced Adam, they figured out they was naked. But before they did, they was pure. They become impure. They figured out. There was a sex between the angel, the Eve, and the Eve, spiritually connection. Parts in the Bible say if you wish the wife of somebody else, you already seen that's what angel did. And then after Eve had a sex, the angel, she had desire to have physical sex, and angel has no body. She went to Adam and induced Adam. Then the serpent had sex, the Eve, emotionally. and Eve have sex with Adam, then they destroy the principles of the first family, and goes on until today. Okay, in Genesis 3, read, after being tempted by the serpent commit sin, the first ancestors become ashamed, their naked, and cover the lower parts of the bodies. However, before the fall, Adam and Eve were naked and shamed. Genesis 2:25. Then when we read that they covered the lower sexual parts of the body with fig, they covered the lower or sexual part of their bodies with fig leaves. After they sinned, we must ask ourselves whether man was committed the sin of fornication. It is in fallen man's nature to try to conceal his faults and wrong. So if the fruit of good and evil were fruit, it is in fallen man nature to try to conceal his faults and wrongs. When you do something wrong, we try to cover it. That's what Eve did first, and Adam. Adam and Eve should have covered their hands or mouths if they had taken the fruit with their hands or had eaten it with their mouths. If they had eaten the fruit fruit like apple, banana, or whatever, they closed the mouth and hide the hands, but they hide the sexual part after they sin. Means they sin by the sexual part where we usually we're seeing human being hide what they do wrong, and I don't even hide the part sexual after they sin was action sexual. Okay, that's what the Bible say. All right. However, before the fall, Adam and Eve were naked but unshamed. Then when they read that when we read that they cover the lower or sexual part of their bodies with fig, they cover the lower sexual parts of their bodies with fig leaves after their sin. We must ask ourselves whether man also committed the sin of fornication. It is in fall of man nature to hide his fault and wrongness. So if the fruit of goodness were fruit, literal fruit in literal sense, Adam and Eve should have covered their hands or mouths if they had taken the fruit with their hands or had ate it with their mouths. But they didn't. They hide the part sexual. They covered the fig. Yet we find that they covered their sexual parts, not their hands and mouths. This is indication that Adam and Eve's transgression involved their sexual parts. If you read Job 31:33 says, let's see, Job 31:33, let's see. In the Old Testament, Job 31:33, Job 39 something. Let's see. Job 31, Job chapter 31, verse 33. Say, let's look. 31, 33, yeah. 33. If I have concealed my transgressions as others do, by hiding my iniquity in my bosom, because I stood in great fear of the multitude. There you go. We read that. This means they hide the part sexual because they did the action was a sexual action. I mean, they had sex, and the fruit of the good and evil was the sex without God's principle, what is called prostitution, without marriage. Let's continue. I have considered my transition. I like Adam by hiding my iniquity in my bosom. Job's words indicate that Adam concealed his transgression, and since we know that Adam and Eve, Job 31:33 says, I have concealed my transgression like Adam by hiding my iniquity. So Job saying he was hide his sin as Adam did, Adam and Eve, okay? And Eve concealed their sexual parts. We can conclude that their sin involved their sexual parts because we hide the part, we did something wrong. In the Garden of the Eden, the only sin that man would possibly commit at the risk of his life was sin involved love. Adam and Eve were to grow as a brother and sister, and after perfecting themselves, were to establish the kingdom of heaven by become the first husband, wife, and create God's family, fulfilling the purpose of the creation of God. Adam and Eve was two people God created to establish the human being in perfection, to be the parents of the humankind, perfect. Fortunately, Adam and Eve fell. We already know, conclude that the fruit prohibited what Adam and Eve ate, gave by the serpent to the Eve first was a sex without marriage, without God told Adam and Eve to grow, multiply, and dominate the universe. Before they have a sex, God will match them as a wife and husband and wife. After they become growing, connected to God, then God will marry them and they go have a children perfect for God and the world, not the word of Satan like we live today, and control the creation for God. Fortunately, Adam and Eve fell by the part sexual, have a sex. The angel induced Eve and Eve induced Adam. The angel had desire to have a sex with Eve. They had sex emotionally. And the Eve had desire to have physical. She has a physical body. But the angel didn't have his body. And then she went to Adam. Then she had a sex, Adam. The angel destroyed Eve and Adam. And Adam, no, Adam not supposed to do. God told him first, and Eve too. Okay, in the Garden of the Eden, the only sin that man will possibly commit and the risk of life was the sin of involved love. Adam and Eve were to grow as a brother and sister, and after perfect themselves, were to establish the kingdom of heaven by becoming the first husband, wife, and create God's family in the world, fulfill the purpose of the creation of God. However, when Jesus says in John 8:44, you are of your father, the devil. You are of your father, the devil. Jesus said, we are like Satan. Adam and Eve fell of human beings. Jesus was clear. He clearly shows that fallen people are descendants of the devil. Adam and Eve forsook God, their true father, and become of Adam and Eve forsake God, their true father, and become one with false father. Adam and Eve, when Eve united serpent and had sex emotionally, and then she didn't see the body of the physical body, and she went to Aram and she had induced Aram, and both had a sex without God principle. Then the word became satanic word. God, instead, Adam never created a family under God, they created a family under Satan. That's why Jesus said, you are like your father, devil. The world is controlled by Satan. Is clear. Sake of God truth. False with Adam and Eve forsake God, forsook of God, their true father, and become one with false father, Satan, which is the reason that Romans 8:23 says, we ourselves who have the first fruit of the Spirit grown inwardly as we wait for adoption of as sons. Adoptions as sons, the redemption of their bodies, and the redemption of our bodies. The fact that we are waiting for adoption into God's lineage tell us that we are not God's lineage. Our blood didn't come from God, it came from the serpent. When the serpent and Eve had emotional sex, and when Adam and Eve, by this feeling the serpent tonight physically, then a blood come from Satan. That's why Jesus came to give the God blood. You understand? In Matthew 3:7, in Matthew 23:33 says, respectively, John the Baptist and Jesus called the people a brood of vipers. In other words, the offspring of serpents clearly indicate that fallen man is the offspring of Satan. Thus, we can clearly understand that fallen man belongs to Satan's lineage. Because Eve was induced by Satan and Eve induced Adam. Eve was fallen. Satan, God told her to not eat the fruit prohibited in the Garden of Eden. And she did when the angel told her to do. He became Satan, and she became the daughter of Satan, Adam, the son of Satan. And that's why Jesus was clear, we are lineage of Satan. The original sin came from the section, from angel, the serpent, even Adam, not from God. That's why God sent Jesus to bring the original lineage, the blood of God. Was a crime, Jesus be crucified. Jesus will go teach us how to take away the blood, and we come back to God. Jesus was assassinated also. Satan repeat the thing with Jesus. This is the result of Eve's committing the sin of fornication with the angel. As a result of this crime, all human beings have been born as the children of Satan, the original sin. And when God told Adam and Eve to not eat the fruit prohibited, an angel came and said, yes, you can eat. God said that because if you eat, you become like him. She's induced her. She was a young lady, and she went there, and she mixed her feeling with the angel Satan, had sex emotionally, and went to Adam and had physical sex. Then we are came from this lineage of satanic. That's why Jesus say, your father Satan. His word is controlled by Satan. Jesus came to take this way. There was a mission of the Jewish people. Have united Jesus, listen, be blessed by Jesus, will be blessed. Everybody take the blood of Satan. Unfortunately, Jesus did the possible impossible, and the people decided to crucify him and not let him finish his job, not because he did the impossible, but the Jews decide they should say sorry for God and become the best Christian in the world. As a result of this crime, all human beings have born as the child of Satan with the blood of Satan. The fruit of goodness and evil and the roots of sin. Since, just a second. Okay. Since the tree produces itself by its fruit, which bears the seed, and may reproduce the being a sexual relationship, then fruits of the tree of knowledge of good and evil symbolize the sexual love of evil. The fact that Eve ate the fruit which Satan persuaded her to eat means that committed fornication with Satan. Since eating something means to make it part of our flesh and blood. When you eat some fruit, goes to the it make to the body and become that's our blood that make by what to eat. That's what Adam Eve did with the serpent. Eve gave Adam the fruit of good and evil, and he's eating it mean that Eve caused Adam to fall through this same act of illicit of love. Therefore, the root of sin is not the first human ancestor eating the literal fruit. Therefore, the root of the sin is not the first human ancestor with a literal fruit like apple, banana, or whatever, but they're establishing a blood relation through fornication with the archangel who was symbolized by serpent. He was archangel in heaven, and he became a serpent. Just a second. Oh, excuse me.